Hello, everybody. So today is Monday, March 25th, at a very strange time of day, and we are bringing you a Block Digest special edition with Pierre Rochard and Nicolas Dorier to go over a lot of the issues regarding neutrino filters that have become a huge point of argument. So I guess Nicolas, Pierre, you guys want to say hi?
Hey.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Rick, Janine, Nopara, you guys alive?
Yes. Good morning, guys.
Hey, guys. Yes.
Hello.
Alrighty. So I guess let's just dive straight into this. So given how many people are here and the fact that we have two guests, which is usually not how we do this, I'm going to kind of try and hang back and play more of a moderator. I'm going to just kind of lay something out to talk about, maybe guide with some questions, or if I think like a core point is like not being gotten to or made, I'll jump in and make that. But other than that, I'm going to try to kind of play hands off. But I guess to start, how about Nikolai? Why don't you kind of break down kind of some of your problems with neutrino filters?
Okay, so my problems is the fact that people are celebrating it for the wrong reason. I think neutrino has very good usage that can be done. So Wasabi Wallet typically is using neutrino the right way, which is you don't trust the proof of work, but you trust Wasabi wallets enough to tell you what is a true chain, but you don't trust them enough to give you access to your wallet, to what are your UTXO. So I think that's a very responsible use of neutrino. And I think I've been a bit dismissive about this because I didn't think about it properly, but this is a very good use of neutrino. The use I'm not very happy with it is people that want to use neutrino on top of a proof of work check. Because my main concern is if everybody start only to rely on proof of work and that miners become crazy like they did 2 years ago, then we are like in deep shits. That's basically my main argument about this. And but I still think there is reasonable way like Wasabi Wallet to use Wasabi.
Okay, and I guess Pierre, you want to kind of break down why you're very fervently for neutrino filters?
Yeah, so I think that I agree with what Nicholas just said, and I think that the way I'm wanting to use neutrino with the node launcher is kind of another use case where I think that the trade-offs are acceptable, which is that basically the node launcher will start LND with neutrino and also start Bitcoin D. And when Bitcoin D has finished doing initial block download, it will restart LND to use Bitcoin D instead. And so for a window of time, which generally will be like 8 hours to 2 weeks, whatever IBD takes for you, you would be using neutrino and relying on proof of work to tell you what the chain is. But I think that the important point there is that you didn't really have a choice anyway because you weren't running a full node and you were in the process of starting a full node. So once your full node is ready, now you're back to being having your financial sovereignty and being able to determine the consensus rules that you want to follow. So I think that the reason that I'm very fervent about it is because what I see is that people are opening up the node launcher, seeing that it's going to take a very long time to do initial block download, and then going on Blue Wallet and creating a custodial Lightning wallet. And so to me, it seems as though you know, not have, and frankly, like this is really independent of Neutrino in the sense that there are other ways that I could, like Nicolas has done with BTC Pay Server, of essentially creating a kind of a checkpoint that you start off with, and you know, there's different trust models around that, and then doing a full sync in the background. So there's different ways of doing it. To me, it seems as though Neutrino is the going to be the closest to being in production, basically, and kind of having a I don't want to say the word consensus around it, but having a lot of support within the developer community. And it seems to be based on reasonable cryptography and all of that. Now, I do want to emphasize another important point, which is that node launcher users will connect to my Neutrino server over Tor. They will not be connecting to random Neutrino servers. It'll be mine specifically, and it'll be authenticated, you know, via Tor. But eventually, there will be also IPv4 authentication, but that's a different BIP, and that's going to be further in the future. And also, like, why not do it over Tor? I actually want the node launcher to be default to Tor on everything. And yeah, so I think that with that in mind, that it's a good use case. Now, I do share Nicolas's concern that others will abuse Neutrino and kind of use it instead of using a full node. And that's where I think that we have to develop applications, develop platforms, in the case of BTC Pay Server, that don't really give the user an option if they have the bandwidth to do IBD. Like, IBD should be the default, and if they really don't have the bandwidth to do it, then I think it's okay to use Neutrino plus, you know, some way of selecting whatever consensus chain you want. That is, but like that to me, that's like an edge case. I don't think that there's a lot of people that are in that kind of situation.
Okay, so or no, sorry, go ahead, Nicolas. Yeah,
the thing is that for the specific case of being able to start using a wallet without thinking first, you don't really need to have Neutrino. Actually, there is Jonas Schnelli, like maybe 2 years ago, that did a pull request where he wanted to have a sort of hybrid SPV mode where as long as it's syncing, it's just following proof of work. And then when it's done syncing, it just, like, you know, follows a valid chain. So you don't really need Neutrino for this case of use case, I think.
Yeah, I agree. There's like 1,000 ways of different ways of doing that. So like there's also Sprund, which is a Python Bitcoin D RPC emulator. And basically what it allows you to do is it downloads blocks as you request them, or gets transactions as you request them, rather than having to download everything. So like hybrid SPV is great. Like, if the pull request had more momentum behind it and it wasn't closed, then I might be promoting that instead. Like, I don't have a strong view on it. I'm just looking, practically speaking, what's on its way to being merged. And then we can talk about what should the scope of Bitcoin Core be. What should be a plugin that is separate from Bitcoin Core? You know, maybe Bitcoin Core should only be the consensus engine and not any of these other services that are ancillary to that. But to me, that's a different conversation. And frankly, that's a conversation for the people who are actively contributing to Bitcoin Core and maintaining it. How much code do they want to maintain? And do they feel like it's getting in the way of, you know, quote unquote ossification or anything like that?
Yeah. All right. So I want to jump in here real quick and kind of just, you know, lay out this question. Like, Nicolas, you're kind of pointing at the full block SPV as a lack of a need for Neutrino. But like the issue with the full block SPV is you have to start downloading blocks from when your wallet was created, and you have to download every single block after that, because you have no way of knowing if you received money in that unless you download it and check it. And so the resource costs for that are a lot higher. And you start getting into the issues of like, well, if somebody can't run a node, like even if you get rid of the IBD cost, if that's still too much bandwidth for them, then that's not a practical thing for people in that situation to do. Whereas with Neutrino, like, you know, more or less probabilistically which blocks concern you, and you don't have to waste bandwidth or time downloading ones that don't, with like the small margin of error.
Yeah, so the very specific point where I'm against Neutrino is not the fact that it doesn't verify anything, but more the fact that the way wallets will start implementing it is by following, connecting to random node and following the most proof of work. And this is really the point, the specific point that is very, I think, risky for Bitcoin. For example, if I understood from what Pierre was doing, you're not connecting to a random node, you're connecting to his node where you say, what is the true chain? And I think it is better because I'm not very worried about Pierre like become a B3X casher. And because even if he did, like, people will not follow him. But if it was miners, then it will be a very different problem. So I'm not showing everything about Neutrino. There is good points of Neutrino, but I think it must be very specific in the sense that even if you have Neutrino, you should not follow the most proof of work chain.
Okay, now I really kind of want to drill into this real quick.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone has trouble keeping up with the chain tip. I think that the problem is entirely about initial block download. So I've never heard of anyone having an issue with downloading 1 megabyte every 10 minutes.
Well, if you have a data plan, like I have a decent number of friends who literally only have a mobile phone as a computing device.
Okay, all right. I'm thinking in the context of, you know, Wi-Fi with a laptop or a desktop computer, you know, with.
But I think that even in mobile case, it's not that bad. Like, when you create your wallet, in general, those people will just bootstrap their wallet, so they don't need to download like lots of blocks at once. They only need to validate them when they come around. So I don't think it's that difficult for a mobile wallet. Maybe it's a bit painful when you close your mobile and then you reopen it like hours later, and I will agree on this though. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, but like to get to like the real core of this though, isn't like the root? Isn't it fair to say, Nikolai, that the root of your problem with this is more just a general problem with all light clients whatsoever? Because I mean, like I can make a wallet that just blindly follows proof of work, that just straight up queries balances, that uses Bloom filters, that uses Neutrino, that uses Electrum servers. Like I can do that with anything, and the mechanism for that wallet finding the balance, it doesn't really factor into whether the wallet just blindly follows proof of work.
It is not specific to all Lightning wallet, because most of Lightning wallets sometimes like just trust a block explorer. The block explorer himself is not following proof of work. It's validating all the rules. So that on Twitter, for example, I said people that are using exchange wallet instead of SPV are doing Bitcoin a favor. I'm saying this because the exchanges are running a full node. So like even if the minor defects, they are not ensured that people would just follow with them. So actually, I way prefer people using Electrum and even like sacrificing their own privacy, that I am concerned about people following blindly miners.
But like that's what I mean though. Like if an Electrum wallet picks one server and does that, or blindly follows miners, it doesn't matter like what it's using, like Bloom filters or Neutrino or. It's what
well,
the
it matters
wallet
because in
is.
the case, imagine that they are following, they are using Electrum and they're just a random person. If the miners are tempted to do an attack on Bitcoin, they cannot be sure at 100% how much people will follow them.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that like I can have a wallet, and that wallet can use an Electrum server to get the balance. It can use Bloom filters or Neutrino, but whether it uses any one of those doesn't really have anything to do with whether it picks a single node to consider valid or whether it blindly follows proof of work. Like you can have a wallet that does either of those with anything.
Yes.
Think about how Wasabi or the node launcher. Think about how Wasabi or the node launcher works, right? If you don't even care about Tor, if we wouldn't work over Tor, then what could we do? How could we lie to our users? We could lie to our users in a way that, for example, we would have to Sybil attack our users with nodes, but we use Tor, so we don't really know which users to lie unless we lie to all the users. And if we would use Tor on the client side, that would be much more interesting, because then we wouldn't even know who to Sybil attack, right? It's and actually Nicolas implemented Tor support to download blocks like that. So it's like it's just as trustless as possible.
Well,
Yeah,
and even if it was not trustless, I actually prefer that people trust you, in the sense that if you become crazy, like people will not follow you. But like if 95% of people are following miners, they would just follow the miners.
I think too that like the conversation has to be balanced by on one hand, like we're talking about the risks. We have to multiply the risk by like what is the cost if that risk gets realized. And so, for example, in my case, if I were to be evil and essentially because I'm controlling the filters, somehow, I don't know how to do this technically, but if somehow I was able to essentially take all the money from someone's channel on Lightning, like we're already telling people don't put a lot of value on Lightning, and also they're only using my filters for the time until they're using a full node, so there's a very limited window where I can steal their $20, and then there's all of the the costs associated with scamming people, where people know my real identity and all that. Now, I don't want us to trust or have to rely on kind of real world identities and reputations to make this all work. But I just do want to put that into a context. And then there's also the cost of initial block download. It's never going to be zero, right? So today, initial block download has a greater than zero cost. We can debate about how high that cost should reasonably be relative to. So, like for example, if someone owns $50 worth of Bitcoin, should they run a full node? Like, I don't know necessarily that they should, because it's just the cost of running a full node is disproportionate to the amount of value that they have or that they are receiving on the Bitcoin network.
Yeah, I mean it's all part of calculus, like as far as how you want to interact with the network. And I think we lost Nikolai here. I think his laptop might have just died. But it's like the real like core of what like I kind of wanted to drive at here though is like it seems to me at least like Nikolai's issue isn't really with neutrino filters themselves. It's with just how light wallets are implemented in the first place, like whether just purely on chain or a lightning wallet or whatever. And that some of them out there are blindly following proof of work. But I think I think that issue is kind of like totally disconnected from Neutrino, and more to the point, it's actually moving away from that naturally. Like I can't think of a single like pure SPV wallet that just follows proof of work except the Shieldbach wallet, the Blockstream Green wallet, which you have to actively turn that feature on, or Bread wallet. That's it. We've already moved away from that, and Neutrino allows us to kind of move a little bit further away from that, even in that now we can have that single centralized thing you trust to validate, but now you aren't giving up your privacy to interact with it, like whether you're using Lightning or not. Like I can now get my balances without that entity learning which coins on the network are mine. And
my point was, I might have expressed it in a wrong way. There is no single central thing that you trust, even with the centralized model, because they only serve you the filters, right? So they cannot lie you about the transactions, except if Wasabi or the node launcher would actively Sybil attack the nodes that the clients are connecting to, right? But if even everything goes over to order, then you don't even know who to Sybil attack. You don't even know who to lie about the filters. So it just it's not a centralized validation in the sense that every other wallet's doing centralized validations. It's much harder to attack the users like this.
No, but that's exactly what I mean. Is like all you count on the Wasabi server for is the best chain headers. Like you can get the blocks in that chain anywhere. And so like we've already kind of moved away from the traditional SPV follow proof of work blindly, except for 3 wallets. Like all the other wallets use a central server that can figure out your balances. And now Neutrino allows you to get the benefit of that central server to trust, but now get your balances from anywhere. So like we've already had a shift from how SPV used to work in a better direction, and now we can take Neutrino and shift further into an even better direction. And I think that like trying to get this not included in Bitcoin Core means that there's less things out there capable of serving it. And keep in mind, this is off by default in the current code that's been written. So the user would have to choose to activate it. But if it's not even in the code base, now we're kind of losing that ability to still just trust one central point for the best chain, but be able to get your balance data from anywhere.
I agree with you, is that moving, so it's over-engineering, trying to cripple SPV wallets. But on the other hand, your logic just doesn't add up.
How so?
It's because your point is not that it's over-engineering to not do SPV wallets, but you're trying to say something like I don't know what you're trying to say.
What I'm trying to say is Nicolas's concern can act like of wallets blindly following miners can actually be fixed with a privacy gain too by having Neutrino in core.
It cannot. How so?
Because I can pick one node that I will always like go, this is the best chain. This is the valid chain because these are the headers that I'm getting from this one node. But then I can grab blocks from any node and make sure that that matches the headers that I'm getting from my central server.
But no one's gonna pick anything. It's a software. It's automatized, right? How you pick the nodes. That's the point.
Yes, but if we don't have Neutrino in Bitcoin Core, then there's going to be nothing out there serving blocks for Neutrino filters. Like you have your central, like each person has their own individual central server. But if that's not a default thing in core, then there's going to be less things people can use as a central default server. And so now you're kind of just
let's give some time to the guests. How about that?
Yeah, Nick, you've been following what we were saying since you got back, Nicolas? And all right, well, Pierre, you want to chime in with something?
Yeah, sure. So I'm so focused on the desktop and laptop situation that I don't really pay much attention to the mobile, and eventually I'll start paying attention to mobile. But on desktop and laptop, like I think everyone should be using a full node in that context, and that the best way to get more people using more full nodes is just by having Neutrino as a stopgap while they're doing IBD, or while they are catching up because they had their laptop closed for a week. And so, yeah, to me, it's like Segwit 2x, right? That was months and months and months that dragged on of very contentious conversation, very public. And so, like, I think that anyone who wanted to spin up a UASF node or a Node 2x node, or, well, I mean, that was just the standard node, right? But anyone who wanted to spin up a Bitcoin node had plenty of time ahead of the threatened hard fork to do so. Now, I obviously, like, I want to err on the side of caution and make sure that we always have plenty of time to do that. But my point being that I think minor attacks, quote unquote, like Segwit 2x, will always take enough time that for people who really do care about it, they can take countermeasures and deploy their full nodes and be able to defend themselves.
Nicolas, you back with us, or you're still having connection issues?
Yeah, I'm back with you, but there's still a presentation, but it's since finished.
All right, you I guess, did you have anything you still wanted to say about the proof of work following?
So my main complaint about wait, it's almost finished. My main complaint about Neutrino is, for example, the first wallet that is claimed to use it. Actually, it's Wasabi, the first wallet that uses it. But the first wallet for which it has been developed is LND Wallet. And the way LND Wallet is by following proof of work. That's what I'm just worried on. I don't think LND by default will allow you to connect to a node that you want. It will allow you, but not by default. By default, it will just follow the proof of work. And I think the default is very important.
Okay, so that's actually something I agree with you that is not a very good design choice. But, like, wouldn't you think that, like, taking that up with the LND team would probably get more fruitful results in something a little more safe for people?
Yeah, but the only way to make it safer is really like safer if you want to prevent the type of attack I'm worried on the long term. It means that LND need to host their own node that people will connect to and trust blindly. And I very likely doubt that LND want to assume such a responsibility, which I totally understand with, which is why it's kind of perverse incentive, basically. Like they have no incentive to act as a source of truths for being the source of the filters. So yeah, it's quite complicated.
Okay, that is a very legitimate issue. So, well, here is a potential alternative. If they were to not bake that in as a default, and neutrino filters were included by default in Bitcoin Core, then wouldn't pretty much any block explorer out there effectively have that baked in as a feature and could just roll that into the Explorer site in a way where a user could just scan something and then connect to a node on an Explorer?
Okay, so I'm not against Neutrino being in Bitcoin Core disabled by default. I'm against it being enabled by default so that people just rely on random node plus proof of work.
Yeah, but I'm saying though is like if it was in core as a default, like not turned on, but just like there in the code base, then every single block explorer out there has to run a node. They would have it and be able to turn it on for people to do something like that, and it would be a lot simpler instead of asking each. You instead of having to go to each individual block explorer and be like, hey, do you guys want to take this whole new thing and try to plug it in and get it working with your system?
I agree. This is very interesting use case. I agree with this, yes.
All right, I guess. Sorry, do you have something else to say, Nicolas? I'm not used to trying to think on my feet this early in the morning.
I was saying that I totally agree with this use case. It's a very great use case of Neutrino, and it's why I'm not opposed to have it inside Bitcoin Core, but just not enabled by default. That's it.
All right, Janine, Rick, I guess do you guys have anything you want to toss in the ring?
Yeah, I just think that like, you know, that sounds good. I mean, just get it in core. I mean, make it to where it's something that we can actually use, because I've been waiting for a feature like this. I mean, I use mobile devices, and I've used some of these that sync headers, and it does take a long time for that initial sync. I mean, like a couple of hours where it's just going through the headers. It's still, and even when that was going on, I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm still just trusting these guys. I feel like there's like a level of trust going on there where I don't really know who I'm participating with. And it does seem like that this could help mitigate any sort of like another 2x style attack or something like that, because you would be connecting to someone that you most likely more or less trust better than this, like just anybody. But yeah, I mean, like it's for sure something that shouldn't be just enabled by default. I mean, we want people to spin up full nodes. And I mean, it's an interesting discussion. It's something that I think ties into like what we were talking about a little bit on the show yesterday about core, and there's like the consensus layer protocol and the wallets, and you know, like it seems like there's just this you know, the wallet interface is just getting in line with the fact that, you know, we want to make these upgrades, but it could affect this this consensus layer, and people don't want to mess with that, and understandably so. But for sure we need this sort of thing for the user experience. I mean, I would rather have a node that I'm connected to that I know connects quickly, and I could trust that situation. I like it better.
Okay, so how about we talk about how does this get into core? So as I see the pull request, it looks like it's ready for a very long time now, and the issues those being, well, there are no issues, right? So what do you see the status of this Let's start with Pierre.
Yeah, so I do think that it's really important to recognize that Jim Posen, who created this pull request, so he worked at Coinbase and has since left, and I believe he's now getting his PhD at Stanford. And from purely a technical software engineering perspective, this pull request is a work of art. And he should be congratulated for putting together such an excellent set of changes to the code base. And I hope that he continues to contribute to Bitcoin Core, because this is just really top-notch software engineering. And if you look at kind of the comments from the other frequent Bitcoin Core contributors, you'll see that very clearly. So I think that this is going to get merged. It's only a matter of time. I think that it really becomes uncontroversial because it's off by default. And yeah, it's today you could. I think that BTCD already has this functionality, and you can already use BTCD on mainnet with Neutrino. BTCD being the Go implementation. So I think it's great to just have this built into the quote unquote reference implementation in C++. And it's got excellent performance characteristics. And so, yeah, it's going to happen, and it's just a matter of time.
Well, once again, I will activate my webcam. Actually, next to me, I am in a Bitcoin meetup right now, so that's why there is lots of noise. But I am with one of the developer of Wasabi Wallet, which is a Lightning wallet that they will use Neutrino. He's developing on Neutrino on this, so I think it might be interesting for this podcast to have his view on this.
Okay, that sounds good.
Once again, I turn the webcam when I can.
What I see, Pierre, what I see in Bitcoin Core, when there is something that's a huge change like this, even if it's kind of uncontroversial. I don't really see too many people coming out against it, but it's a huge change, and the question always becomes who's gonna click on the merge button, right? And no one wants to take the role to do that. That's what I see. What do you think about that?
I don't think that I don't think this is being held up by the maintainer not clicking the merge button. I think that there's a healthy amount of review going into it, and I think that there's this does not touch consensus critical parts of the code base. There's been a lot of work done to separate out different parts of the code base and have it be more modular. So the biggest one recently was really getting a separation between the node and the wallet. And that was led by Russ Yanofsky. That was a multi-year effort, and that was recently merged. And so I think that I don't think that the maintainers have hesitation on merging very large pull requests that have been heavily reviewed. And so to the extent that this BIP 157 pull request gets the right amount of review, I think that there won't be any hesitation from the maintainers to merge it in. And so right now I think it's got a concept ACK, and yeah, so until it has more tested ACKs, then yeah, it will linger a little longer, and maybe there is some conversation about the review process in Bitcoin Core and how long it takes versus we want to have a very rigorous review process. I think that those aren't mutually exclusive. But anyway, I'll hand it over to our new guest.
Hey, we have Wasabi developer here. How are you doing?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay.
How's it going, Alvaro? So Nicolas said you were talking about Neutrino, is that correct?
Yes.
Can I put that headphone?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Bitcoin meetup here, so a bit noisy. Yeah, so I'm developing a Lightning wallet, and so it connects to your own full node, which is what I'm more interested in. However, we kind of want users to be able to use it without a full node. So we also integrated Neutrino. However, as Nicolas mentioned, there are concerns about Neutrino. Obviously it'll just follow the longest chain. So are there ways to mitigate this? So the way I see Neutrino is, initially I saw it as typically a wallet that uses a blockchain API. However, you don't leak privacy. So you get the benefits of not really needing to sync too much, but you don't leak privacy to the full node you're connecting to. However, obviously on Twitter, there's been a bit of a kind of conversation around it not giving you sovereignty, The way I see it at the moment, there's kind of two views I have it. One is that if you force Neutrino to only connect to one node, then and you have control to what node it connects to. If there was a contentious fork, or if there was a SegWit3x, well, maybe the node that you connect to, you kind of trusted it wouldn't follow such a fork. And if it did, you could switch it out to point to a node that is on the correct fork for you. Another factor is that it's a bit over my head, but some of the math wizards are working off fraud proofs and things like this, so that if there was a fork, Neutrino wouldn't blindly follow it. It would just stop working. So these are kind of the two views that we're exploring at the moment. So that's where we're at. But again, personally, I'm more interested in trying to get it easier to run for people to run a full node. So it's a slightly separate topic, but I'm going to start experimenting with running a full Bitcoin node and a Lightning node on something like an Android TV with AB Core, which lets you run a full node on Android. You can maybe run that on an Android smart TV. So this might be an easy way for people to run a full node, things like this. Maybe even a smart fridge if they run Android, I don't know. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's pretty succinct. That's really the only reason I find it interesting is the privacy aspect. But is Nicholas got his headphones in? Or
I'm gonna go and drink. I'm gonna go and drink beer and eat pizza. So I'll pass it back to Nicholas.
Sounds like a fun meeting.
Thanks for tossing your 2 cents in. All right, Nicholas, you back with us?
Yep, back.
Alrighty, so Nopara has had to disappear for personal things he has to take care of. But so let's kind of take a step back here and kind of check where we're at. So we've all kind of arrived at a page here where we've acknowledged that there is a safe way to implement Neutrino that does not put the network at systemic risk by having everybody just blindly following miners, right? Okay. And so we've also kind of arrived at the point where we're all on the same page where there's no reason that this should not be merged into Bitcoin Core as long as it's something the user has to turn on and it's just not on by default.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so dang it, I was expecting more shouting and arguing and a chance to call people idiots.
I would prefer it if it would be default, actually.
You should have invited some toxic trolls on.
I admit that at the first time when I saw Neutrino, I completely missed the use case or typically that Wasabi is doing right now, which is perfectly legit. So yeah, I still see good reason to do it. But for example, if you have your own node, for example, BIP37 is way better than Neutrino because it requires less bandwidth. So Neutrino is only useful in one specific case where you don't want to trust the block explorer about your UTXO, but still want to have a light node, basically. It's only useful for this, which is way more specific than what it's sold for.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that Neutrino is. I don't think it's light enough for a mobile wallet, right? 4 GB of filters, that's too much. In fact, for Wasabi, I'm not sure if we are going to do Neutrino because our cheat is, our trick is that we only do batch 32 filters. So we can only index batch 32 addresses, which means our filters are only 200 megabyte for now and doesn't grow as fast as they would grow otherwise. So that's an interesting conversation there too.
Yeah, but that's kind of like a one-off cost, and once you've downloaded the filters for prior blocks, it's pretty much just keeping up with things. You and me have had this argument, I think, a few times before. But it's the main like use case here is like the privacy when not running your own full node and querying your balance here. And it's also it's like very general purpose. Like you can get that for an on-chain or a Lightning wallet. Like Pierre said, he wants to use it as kind of a temporary stopgap while a node is bootstrapping. Like it ultimately, like neutrino filters are just a tool, and really like any other tool in the peer-to-peer layer of the protocol, it really comes down to how you use it. Like anything can be used irresponsibly where it creates negative externalities, and anything can be used in a more proper way where it doesn't create those externalities. And really at the end of the day, it comes down to like how you actually choose to build something or implement something with a tool.
Yeah, so like I said, the way of LND is using it, will use it, is irresponsible as far as I think. There is one thing I'm interested into doing still is in BTC Pay so in BTC Pay recently there is a torch report which allow you to bypass very easily firewalls and line nuts and all these kind of difficult configurations. And I wish in the future that you can expose your node on internet and just connect to it with Tor. You can use Neutrino to bootstrap your node, or even better, it will be BIP37. But I think Neutrino will be kind of the standard, so it's good enough, I think. Sadly, there is this question of bandwidth, but well, if you want to solve the bandwidth, there is a BIP37 basically.
So I guess Pierre, you kind of want to jump in here for something like this? Honestly, like I'm doing a bad host job today. My brain is
stayed up too late.
My general philosophy is that rather than trying to persuade the LND developers of doing this or that, like I would rather just wrap around them and then set my own defaults the way I think they should be, and then compete in the marketplace for software. And so that's what I want to do. And if I think that if they see that, you know, having better defaults leads to more users, then I think that they'll change their defaults. If they don't, then people will get my defaults anyway, and it's okay. But yeah, well, it's kind of the general problem with technology, right? Like people can use it for good or they can use it for bad. They can use it responsibly or irresponsibly. And so I kind of see the Neutrino the same way.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you know, really at the end of the day, I do agree with like Nikolai on that. Like that's not really the proper way to be doing any kind of SPV wallet. And yeah, I'm actually kind of disappointed about that.
Speaking of whether tech can be used for good or bad, what do you guys think about even using the term neutrino for describing, I mean, I think it was Rodolfo who said that we should just start calling them compact block filters like before and not use neutrino, not only because like, why do we need to give it a special name, but also because of the associations now with neutrino being acquired by Coinbase.
Well, should we rename Lightning Bolt 11?
Yeah. And then if we rename it compact block filters, then we'll have to abbreviate it to CBF. And I think we already have enough abbreviations of like, you know, child pays for parent or all these other things where it's like we've got it's. I think naming things is very hard, and whatever gets momentum, I'll go with. But it is an unfortunate coincidence with Neutrino.
Well, what's the fun in being in a specialized space if you can't make confusing jargon to spin the newbies' heads around?
You're right.
Yeah, the minute that something else gets created, some other thing's going to get spun up that sounds just like it, and then it'll be a confusing process all over again. We just won't let those guys win. Neutrino means this.
All right, so, I mean, I am very sleep deprived, but I think we kind of really plumbed this conversation to the core. Like, you guys think we did a good job with this one?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we are at like consensus on this.
All right. Well, so
Nobody insulted each other. That's fine.
you're
That's
an
rare in
idiot.
the world.
You're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
I'll give compliments. I think BTC Pay Server is one of the most important projects in the space.
Thanks. That
Yeah.
really means a lot to us. Really, really. Like, and we are pretty fan also of your approach because actually lots of people were asking what's the difference between the node launcher and BTC Pay, and maybe it has not been enough described it, but basically the node launcher if you want Lightning node on your desktop, where on our side is on a server. So
right.
It's very nice complementary stuff.
Agree.
Mm-hmm. You guys are helping software eat the world, and that is an amazing thing to see.
On the way, on the way.
Yeah, both you guys are doing great stuff.
All right, so I guess this seems like a good place to round it off. So I guess Nikolai, do you have anything to say in terms of final comments?
Good appetite, and I will drink my beer.
I would join you, but it's too early. How about you, Pierre? Anything you want to comment?
So if you are using Lightning and you're a merchant using BTC Pay Server, maybe you need some inbound capacity. So go to lightningpowerusers.com, and I just created a web form that allows you to automatically get inbound capacity. I'll open a channel to you. It's still in beta, so if you have a problem, go on Twitter and call me a scammer, and we'll figure out what the problem is.
Oh my God, Pierre! I just remembered. I forgot. You failed at routing my beer.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's awful. I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you announce it anywhere? Because I was not aware of your service actually.
Yeah, so it's in soft launch. So I'm not. I haven't published a Medium post or anything. I wanted to get a few more like beta testers on the DL quietly. Yeah. So once it's proven itself, so I think in a couple of weeks I'll do a very public announcement and getting CoinDesk and all of that.
Okay, I mean, it might be interesting for BTC Pay to have like people onboarding people, merchant easily on Lightning. So let me know.
I want to create, right now it's just a web page using WebSockets. Like I'd like for there to be like an API that you can programmatically query to do that. And then also just have it built into a Docker image for a BTC Pay server so that anyone can provide inbound liquidity, and get paid to do it in this way. So that's the direction I'd see this evolving.
Yeah, with pleasure. It will be very, very useful.
This is history, guys. Everybody watching, you're seeing history in the making.
That's how open source works.
Love it, man. It's great. Good stuff, guys.
A drunk guy on one side of the planet collaborating with somebody up early in the morning on the other side.
Oh, man. The Bitcoin is so great, man.
All right. Thanks for having me on. I got to get going.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks for coming, Pierre. And same to you, Nikolai. I guess
have a good day. See you.
Mm-hmm.
Later.
I guess everybody else watching, I hope you enjoyed this very discombobulated early morning special edition.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Adios.